there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1981 slasher classic, one of my all-time favorite slashers, and one of my favorite horror films of the 1980s, My Bloody Valentine. Now, before I get started sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I do want to give a quick shout out to a good friend of mine named Jonathan for requesting my thoughts on this film, as well as the remake. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal or my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below. And I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, My Bloody Valentine is a film that I've always been really fond of, ever since I first saw it on VHS, and later on when I got it on DVD. I remember really being very excited about the Lionsgate DVD because it had uncut footage and special features. And I remember that along with the Monster Squad being one of like the first horror DVDs I really remember buying with my own money. And then I picked up the Blu-ray for cheap, and then Shout Factory did their release under their Scream Factory label on Blu-ray, and I think that was gifted to me by Jonathan. And then I picked this up, the 4K, because I'm such an enormous fan of this film, and this is definitely the best the film has ever looked or sounded. Like, this is a really great 4K release from Scream Factory. A must own if you're a fan of the film and have a pretty solid 4K setup. It's directed by George Mihalka, and I think this is his best work. He did another film before this that was not even remotely in the same genre. It was more of a coming of age or, drama with a little bit of romance, more like a teen film. And he directed this in a way that was just so strong that it's really surprising that he hadn't really done anything of this sort uh, beforehand. This is a very finely crafted, well made movie in a multitude of different ways. And it definitely starts with the direction. I love the way this film looks, I love the way it's shot. It's a very grimy and gritty and dark and atmospheric and genuinely creepy in terms of the way that the camera is set up at times, with some really well done POV shots of the killer, or the way that he directed scenes inside the mines, or the kills themselves were shot in ways where you just had maximum just edge to them. Like, they were very sharp and brutal and unflinching and almost documentary style at times in terms of just their realism and the way that they were shot. And the camera isn't static. It's not just sticking its foot in the ground. It's not stuck in a quicksand or anything. It's moving, and it has a purpose behind the movement, though. It's not just random camera movements. Yeah, I think it's a magnificent job well done by George when it comes to the direction for My Bloody Valentine. And I think the script is really stellar by John Beard. I legitimately feel this screenplay is one of the best slasher scripts out there in terms of how it's able to handle the red herring, the mystery aspect, as well as all these different cast of characters, and utilizing the setting, which is this small town in kind of the middle of nowhere, podunk small town. And it really did something fresh and unique for a slasher at the time, where the characters, the people who are being stalked and slashed and killed by the killer in this, they're not a bunch of horny teenagers. Like they're horny at times, and they party and they drink, but they're young adults. They're not teens. So that was different. And there's also this other bit of drama involving this love triangle with three of the characters that also adds a little more weight to things. And you just get a really good sense of history when it comes to Harry Warden and what he did in the past and the impact that the brutal slayings on Valentine's Day years ago had on this small community, and why they didn't have Valentine's Day dances for decades, and why it's taken them so long to break away from that and start anew. And there is this small town value aspect to the script and its characters that really provides it with a lot of charm and makes it genuinely endearing at times. So when you see what happens to characters like Mabel, it's genuinely sad, because the way that the character was represented in just a short amount of time, you got the gist that she was a real sweetheart, like a genuine sweet older lady, and she meant well, and the killer rips her heart out and throws her body in a dryer. And it's just there's just a lot of moments in this that are not your typical sort of stuff involving a slasher. There's a whole kill that I really love involving this bartender who is in a lot of ways kind of like the "you're doomed" guy from Friday the 13th. He's warning the young adults, telling them, "Hey, you better not take this lightly. Like Harry Warden is someone to take seriously. You don't piss on Harry Warden." And he goes through all the trouble to create this prank that involves a fake Harry Warden mock-up with a pickaxe, and he winds up getting killed by the killer after he decides to test the prank one more time and open the door, and he gets a pickaxe through the neck, and it goes right through his eye and pops his eyeball out. And it was a really effective visceral kill, and it was also a nice bit of misdirection. And there's just nice little details that are strewn throughout the screenplay. Like there's a scene where the police officer who's investigating these killings, he goes to Madame Mabel's laundromat, trying to see what's going on with her, where she is. And before he finds her dead body, he's finding little subtle creepy clues where the Valentine's Day decorations of the hearts, they're turned upside down. And it's just little details like that that really make this into something a heck of a lot better than your average slasher, because it makes it an effective story in a multitude of different ways. And yeah, like I said, the red herring was handled brilliantly. For those of you who, for whatever reason, still haven't seen this movie, spoiler alert here. Um, yeah, the way that they set things up in terms of Axel and the reason why he decided to take on the bloody mantle of Harry Warden and dress up as the miner with the pickaxe and start killing again on Valentine's Day is really heart wrenching, and the trauma that he experienced is something that really makes you understand why this man would eventually snap like he did. And prior to that, it did a good job setting him up as a character that you didn't necessarily think would be the killer. You thought it was this other guy, TJ. You thought he was the killer, but in reality, it was Axel. So it effectively pulls the wool over your eyes for a good chunk of the running time in terms of the way that it writes Axel, makes you sympathize with him because he is in a relationship with Sarah, and Sarah's previous boyfriend was TJ, but TJ left and was out of her life for a long time. And so Axel, he moved in, but he didn't think that TJ would ever come back, and TJ came back, and now TJ wants his girl back, but understandably Axel's like, "Hey, what are you doing, man? Like, you've been gone for years, and we have started dating, we've been together, like, she's my girl, man." And so you definitely do feel for him when there's that fallout when it comes to his relationship with Sarah. And you also kind of feel it for TJ as well. You understand why he wants to reestablish a relationship with his former lover, and you understand why she is also being torn apart when it comes to her allegiance or her love for either one of them. And it does create some really compelling drama. And there's still a lot of fun dialogue too from characters, fun little moments of just silliness that really do liven the mood and make it so it's not too heavy of a film despite how visceral and violent it is, and how genuinely sad and oblique the film is. Because if you really think about it, there's only two survivors. At least there are some other survivors who were at the party but wound up leaving. But when it comes to like the main characters, it's just TJ and Sarah. Everyone else dies, and one of them was actually the killer. Um, but yeah, there's just a really good pace to things too. Really good balance of character development and plot, as well as the kills. Like, there's never really a moment in the story where things become really tedious and slow, because it seems to really know when it needs to throw in a kill, when it needs to throw in a moment of suspense or tension. And speaking of the kills, I think the kills in this are just fantastic for this kind of movie. The kill where one of the young women, she gets her head just shoved onto a shower head. Uh, it's a really grisly kill, and it creates an equally grisly and just stark image of her uh dead body, just with the head just shoved on the shower head, and her mouth wide open with water mixed with blood pouring out. The kill involving the bartender, where he gets the pickaxe to the jaw or the neck and pops his eye out. The nail gun death, even the hot dog death is really has that, like, ooh, where the guy gets his head shoved into a boiling pot of hot dogs. And even something that isn't as gory as some of the others, like the death, I think it was like really the last kill. And there's this character who throughout the movie it seems like she might be one of the survivors. She's been through hell. She saw her boyfriend get murdered, or she at least saw her boyfriend die in front of her eyes, and she's distraught and she's hysterical, and she's just understandably just absolutely out of it, and you're rooting for her to make it, and she doesn't. She gets a pickaxe to the stomach, and it's brutal in a way where you don't really see the kill, but what you see is a reaction. You see an intense reaction from this character while she is in pain and dying. And just the way that that was shot and directed, and just the way that things were just kind of uh, uh, handled with that, it really was in some ways even more effective if it was just like a blood fest, because you just saw like that moment of shock and then pain and then uh, the realization of death. And it's a very just grim movie at times, but it makes it very effective when it comes to the horror. And the mine shaft, or the mines themselves, is a really good setting for a slasher and for a horror film in general, because there's so many different shadows and nooks and crannies and dark places and unfamiliar spots for the killer to hide in, or for people to not know what's going to come next. And the whole idea of the killer just smashing light bulbs while he's going after them and just making it even darker, like, that is terrifying. And I think even like the design, even like the costume, like the look of the killer with the mining gear and the pickaxe, like that's also intimidating and foreboding and just uh eerie in its own way. I think it's just an excellent movie in so many different ways, and definitely one of them is the screenplay. Like I said, I think it's a stellar script for what it is. I really do. I mean, even the last few scenes where you get even more of a shock. Not only do you have, the reveal that Axel is the killer, but there's this one last moment of shock where Sarah goes to try to be with him because they realize that he's still alive. She tries to hold his hand. He's just grabbing her arm and not wanting to let go. And Axel's so out of it that he cuts his own arm off to escape. And so she's left with just this severed arm that's holding on to her. I mean, that is just crazy. That's really wild. And he's in the middle of a mental breakdown and just completely out of his mind, babbling. He's convinced himself that he actually is Harry Warden, and he's laughing. And then you cut to the end credits with the very memorable and iconic uh, folk song, um, for My Bloody Valentine, the Ballad of Harry Warden, which is another reason why this film just straight up rocks. It really does. Which is by John McDermott, with composition work by Paul Zaza, who did the score for the film. But yeah, I can't sing enough praises when it comes to the story and the script and everything. I definitely think that it's peak slasher uh, uh on pretty much every level. likable characters with enough charisma and personality that make you enjoy being around them. So then when they start getting taken out, it's genuinely harrowing, and it really enables a killer to have a significant amount of menace because it feels like a genuine threat because you like these characters and you don't want them to die. You just want to party with them, drink some beer, have a good time, and here comes this killer who's just ruining everybody's fun. Um, and there's still amount of heavy drama too to really provide some weight to things, and it's not just over the top uh, uh, gore and violence and not a whole lot of substance. Yeah, it's a really terrific script and overall film. The cast, I think for the most part, it's really strong. I think it's a solid cast. Paul Kelman as TJ, to be honest, he's kind of there for me. Um, there are some moments of dialogue from him that are a bit stilted and a bit stiff at times, but he was okay. But I would say out of all the cast members, I think he was one of the weaker performers for me. Lori Hallier, though, as Sarah, I thought she was really special. Difficult role because she's stuck in the middle between TJ and an Axel and has to really show those emotions. And then she has to show a woman who is effectively emotionally battered throughout the movie, as well as physically, and do it in a way that doesn't come across as overly hysterical or laughable. Uh, the way that she handled it really did come across like this was genuine, this was authentic, like all of this was actually happening to her, and her reactions were something that was deep from her soul. She was actually putting her heart out there. And Neil Affleck is Axel. I thought he was awesome. I thought he did an amazing job playing this character. He did a good job making you like him, uh, making you feel for him when it comes to his girl being taken away by this guy who just shows up again after all these years, and definitely made you think that he cared about his friends and he wouldn't hurt them. And then when the reveal happens, you're just thrown for a loop because the actor did such a good job playing against what you initially expected. And apparently, the cast, they didn't know the twist. The rest of the cast, other than the actor playing Axel, they had no idea. They didn't know about the twist in terms of who the killer was until they shot that scene, which I thought that was a really inspired choice by the filmmakers. Cynthia Dale, she plays Patty. Don Franks plays Chief Jake Newby. I really liked his performance in the film. Uh, really solid work by him. Keith Knight is Hollis. I liked Hollis a lot. Like a big, burly kind of guy, but with a really fun personality, genuine charisma. Humphreys was the Joker of the group, the guy who's drinking soda through his nose and is just a total riot and always there to make someone laugh. Um, Terry Waterland is as Harriet. Thomas Kovacs is Mike Stavinsky. Helen Udy is Sylvia. Rob Stein is John. Patricia Hamilton is Mabel. Gina Dick as Gretchen. All of them were good. All of them did a good job playing their respective roles. And I think Well, in some ways, like some of these performances, they're not, I don't know, they're not Oscar worthy, but that's not what you're expecting out of a slasher anyway. They had fun with it, and I really think that went a long way. You really did buy that these actors and these actresses, they genuinely had a good time filming this. They had a good time working with each other, and that just creates some undeniable chemistry, and it just makes for a very strong cast. Even though, some of the performances aren't the best, like the guy playing TJ, maybe a couple other instances, but their enthusiasm more than makes up for their limitations. And the cinematography by Rodney Gibbons is great. Like, this film has some really good looking cinematography. There are moments where he shoots it in a way where it's very hazy, and I think that just adds to the whole nightmarish quality of the film at times, where it has this kind of dream-like state visually, and that just makes things all the more atmospheric and moody. And yeah, it's a hazy, smoky, and grimy and gritty, and just a really well shot film from a cinematography perspective as well as direction. And it's also a film that features some excellent editing by Gerald Vancier and Rit Wallace, especially when it comes to the more visceral, brutal kills, or the aftermath of a murder, or the scenes involving the bloody valentines, and even little subtle stuff, or things that aren't necessarily horror related, just some of the scenes that showcase the mine, or the party scenes. It's just a well edited film, and it's fitting because in a lot of ways the movie is like a well oiled machine. And the music by Paul Zaza, I thought that was also something that really added an extra element to the movie that just made it even more special, especially when it comes to the creep factor at times. The score is very just opposite of what you might expect sometimes, and the compositions are jarring at moments. Almost sounds like the piano is needs a tune or something, needs to be tuned, or the guitar needs to be tuned, or some of these other things. Like, it just sounds very off at times, but in a good way, because it's there to really add even more atmosphere and mood to a given scene. And there's other moments where the composition is very precise, and honestly reminds me of the work of John Harrison, who did the score for Creepshow. And it's a movie that's like 90 minutes, and it goes by super quick, like a trip down to the mine shaft on a mine cart with no brakes. Like, it doesn't really have very many dull moments. Like I said, it has really good pacing and good balance when it comes to different plot elements and different character elements, and the kills. And speaking of the kills, I mean, the practical makeup effects, they're some of the best work that you will ever see in any slasher movie. Just really good, realistic looking effects. And yeah, to me, it's got everything. It's got everything that you want out of a slasher film, or just a really solid, enjoyable, entertaining horror movie. Um, yeah, it's a film that I will continue to enjoy, and watch every Valentine's Day, or just any time, or any day, because it's just that good of a movie. And I cannot recommend it enough. I really cannot. If you haven't seen this film yet for whatever reason, go out and get yourself a copy or rent it on streaming and see it as soon as possible, especially if you're a fan of slasher films and 80s horror. But anyway, that's my review of My Bloody Valentine. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya. Now I have a special little treat for you. My a cappella cover of the Ballad of Harry Warden. Once upon a time, on a sad Valentine, in a place known as Hanniger Mine, a legend began. Every woman and man would always remember the time. And those who remain were never the same. You could see the fear in their eyes. Once every year, as the 14th draws near, there's a hush all over the town. For the legend they say on a Valentine's Day is a curse that will live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. 20 years came and went, and everyone spent the 14th in quiet regret. And those still alive know the secret survives in the darkness that looms in the night. For the legend they say on a Valentine's Day is a curse that will live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. In this little town, when the 14th comes round, there's silence and fear in the air. Remember the morn that the legend was born, of the shock and the horror was there. For the legend they say on a Valentine's Day is a curse that will live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago.